Turning career loss at 57 into a life-changing gift. I worked for 25 years at the same company, and they gave me 12 years notice that I would eventually, 12 years, yes, quite literally, lose my career. What? Here's how. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Seth, and I make videos about how I make chainsaw art and how I'm reinventing my life. This video is about how I ventured into chainsaw art, since many of you have asked. But the question usually comes out more like, how did an old Gen Xer 50-something corporate guy end up as a chainsaw artist? Well, I understand the question. It sounds very odd. It did look like an overnight change, but if it was overnight, it was a 12-year night. First big clue about how they gave me 12 years notice is that I lost my job within the company 5 times during those 12 years. To explain how I lost my job the first 4 times, I got to explain work credits. So in some corporations, they use this metric called work credits, which is a measurement of how much work there is to be done. And they come up with this formula that determines how many people are needed, how many management people are needed, and so on. So 4 times, because of declining workload credits, I lost my job. I understand, I did the math, I realized what was going on, but it was still very difficult to have to keep moving. Some of you may say, why didn't you just fix it? Improve your situation, sell more stuff, get more efficient, change your business model, whatever you need to do in order to make the work credits match so that nobody lost their job. I understand that that can be done in many places, but without getting into too much detail, my job was to manage assets within a very rigid set of rules, and many times those rules were contradictory to each other. Then the 5th time I lost my job, it was a RIF. RIF, a reduction in force. And this is a permanent job loss. You're out of here on the street, no paycheck, it's all over. In all 5 of those cases, I was hopeful. We were hopeful that many people would retire, go ahead and take the early outs, that they would just quit, whatever, change careers. And they did, and they left vacancies. Whatever was left, those of us left behind would fight over, civilly, of course, through interviews and relationship building. So now maybe you're starting to see the big clue that I was getting, that I would eventually lose my career during those 12 years. But it didn't really sink in. It didn't sink in because I really believed that I was an asset that they would work hard to keep. I had good numbers. I got promoted roughly every 18 months. I thought everything was going to work out and was a bit naive and really didn't see coming what was about to happen. Each of the 5 times, I was nervous. I always found something better the first 4 times, but the 5th time was different. It actually broke me. I was in a very stressful situation where I was working hard to get promoted out of it. I was trying to get to a place where I could influence policy or make policy so I could fix some of the stuff and made the company bad. But I wasn't there yet, so I was struggling trying to get out of that spot when I lost my job that 5th time. So after 23 years with the same company, I finally had a complete breakdown. And I'll tell you more about that breakdown here in just a little bit. Now, some of you might be saying at this point, I'd have left that job. And I get it. I did at least half-heartedly look for something else. I did think about leaving it a lot. There's a lot of reasons why people stay. They stay because maybe they don't want to abandon their coworkers in a difficult situation. They stay because of the pay, the retirement package, the tenure, whatever it is. They feel like they have accumulated something that's worth staying for, that's worth fighting for. And that's really where I was at. It was kind of a golden handcuff kind of situation for me. I was enslaved. I didn't feel like I was working as someone who was valued, but I couldn't really leave. I couldn't see how I could go about replacing it, couldn't get the money again, and I would rather fight the difficulty I knew than trying to get out and try something new on my own. I was so convinced of the value, in fact, that when they offered me a severance package, 2021, which was 23 years for me, I said no. It would have been something like 23 months of pay, retirement earned with no penalties, and man, if I could tell myself back in 2021 to take it, I would say take the money and run. But I didn't know what was about to happen. I really thought that I could grind it out for 5 more years. It was worth the struggle. Finish what you started, get the full 25 years in, which is what I needed at that time in order to get a full retirement, then go. But without going into too many gory details, I decided to stick it out for the next 5 years, and I went through basic hell on earth for 2, all I managed to survive it for. During that time, because of the toxic environment that I was in, I experienced freeze up kinds of panic, long-term seething rage, very, very difficult time in my life and in my career. I'm very devoted in my walk as a Christian, and God did sustain me through that. And so I'm not casting any dispersion on Him or my faith. I just wasn't applying it correctly. There were some things I didn't understand, and there were some things that I learned through it that became very valuable. God didn't do this to me. I did. He never left me. But through it, He taught me some very valuable things that I'll tell you about a little later also, about how He made me ready for my entrepreneurial journey. So during those 2 years, I had to find a job. And so I interviewed for my old job, which was really humiliating. Basically, all they changed about it was where it was in the structure and the title. I pretty much did exactly the same thing and was continuing to do the same thing. They never moved me, which indicated that the job was actually still there. But I had to interview for it as if I was a stranger off the street. And the devastating thing to me was that they didn't even tell me I got the job. They let me interview, they interviewed everybody else, they let me continue to interview for other positions. They never told me I had the job. I still think I'm jobless, and I think I'm fighting for a position. And in fact, I went on a total of 27 interviews all across the country. Later I found out that not only did they not tell me I had the job, but my boss who gave me the job was telling these other interviewers that they didn't want me because I was damaged goods. So there's this very dog in a manger kind of thing going on. My boss did tell me eventually that I got the job, and it was when I was interviewing with her for another position that would actually also report to her, that would have been a promotion for me. And she just kind of, off the cuff, well, of course you got that job. In this condescending kind of way, or at least that's how I took it. You should have known, dummy. And she didn't actually say that, but I realize this is an emotional response, but it's how I read the situation. And in the environment that I was in, it was very real to me. It was very painful. So I didn't get any of those jobs. I was still in the same toxic environment, the same toxic relationships. I know I keep using that word a lot, but it's the only thing that makes any sense to me at this point. It was like something that's gonna kill you. And it almost did. I interrupt the story here to thank you for making it this far. Maybe you've got someone in your life that is struggling with this. Maybe you're trying to make a decision. And so I made this checklist of many of the important things that I think you really have to think through. And sometimes when we're struggling through something really difficult, we need something to help us keep our thoughts organized. And so the list is available. There's a link down in the description if you would like it. If you haven't liked or subscribed at this point, I'd really appreciate that. Let me know if you have any questions, if there's anything else I can do to help you. These decisions are tough, and we're fellow decision makers together. Now back to the story. I started getting help because I knew I was in trouble. The company had a counselor that came around and worked with us, and he had some great ideas, but he couldn't fix anything permanent. He couldn't fix what was inside of me. There really wasn't enough time to talk about it, and he couldn't fix the relationship problems that I was having. And so I went to outside counseling help as well. I found a wonderful Christian counselor that helped walk me through it. I got help from our soul care team at church, and of course my wife is amazing, wonderful support. And I just tried to grind out day by day and get through it. One day on the way home, I really struggled with self-harm kind of ideation. So I wasn't suicidal, although thoughts entered my mind. That would certainly be a lot safer than where I was now, which I dismissed that immediately. But I did have the idea that if I could just hurt myself, I could sleep for 6 months and nobody would expect anything of me, and I could actually live up to my expectations for once. I was like, what on earth is that thought? And these thoughts would drift through my mind, these dreamy things about, let's just hit that bridge abutment right there, but don't hit it too hard, you want to die. But man, mess yourself up really good. Or roll the car over here in this ditch, and let's get out of this, escape. there was something inside of me that was trying to protect me from what my subconscious thought was worse than what it was suggesting, which all seems so very weird. And I immediately went home and went about my business that night, and then told my wife about it and got serious help. But before I tell you about that, it was so cool how God worked out the details. That night, we had this celebration thing at church for all the volunteers, and it was a dress up, just be silly grown up dance party thing, and there was a lot of food. And so I got to self-medicate with yummy cake and snacks, and we had these headphones that we could put on and pick our own music. So I didn't have to talk to anybody, because I would have probably cried, and it would have been a very difficult, very ugly sort of situation. And so I got to immerse myself in the silly goofiness of the moment and just forget about my whole life and my whole world for a while. And of course, I posted pictures of it on Facebook, and my work used that against me, somehow I was faking it, because, well, look, everything's fine, he's at a party. I went to regular counseling every week, and my counselor told me a number of things to do. One was, there was a lot of journaling, a lot of talking with my wife, a lot of praying. There was sweating and being creative and doing manual labor. And so I took up woodworking, and I think to her amazement and astonishment, I also picked up chainsaw art. I don't think she saw that one coming, but it was a way for me to be creative, to take my time and really make something and sweat and just get a lot of this pent up energy out of me and into something creative, something where I wasn't damaging something, I wasn't yelling at somebody, I wasn't just wrestling with my own seething rage. I could get it out and I could do something, and it was very helpful. And then she also told me, don't go back. If you have third degree burns, you don't go back into the fire and think somehow that your burns are going to heal. This is where you are. You are burnt. You are charred flesh on the inside. You have got to get away from that in order to heal from it. Now, we're going to get you stable, we're going to get you ready to go, and we'll get you back into the workplace again, maybe even into the same job, but for right now, stay put. And my work fought with me about that. They threatened me with termination if I didn't come back to work, and this, of course, exacerbated the whole thing, just compounded the problem. So my counselor continued to give me notes and tell me that she didn't want me to go back to work, and I eventually ended up taking all of the leave that I had 10 months saved up, and I used all of it to get well. I didn't intend to take it, but this just how it went, and that's how the healing journey, how long it took. As God's orchestration would have it, that 10 months ended right at that 25-year mark, where I could leave early with serious penalties on my retirement. There'd be no severance, but I could at least get out with something. I felt like I could go back to work. I just didn't want to. I could do it again. I was ready. I was healed. I had fully given myself to the process of recovery, uncovered a lot of stuff that needed to get fixed on the inside of me that made me a better man, made me a better husband. But I didn't want to go back to work. I didn't want to do that anymore. Again, let's use the burning building analogy. I could go back into that burning building again, and I knew better than to get burnt, and I knew how to not get burnt. But it's hot, smoky, it's bad news in there. It's a very dangerous place to be. So I decided not to go back. A big part of how I decided not to go back is a spiritual journey. And my wife and I took a weekend to go sit in nature at Camp Chet, and we did a lot of journaling, a lot of Bible reading, a lot of discussion. And one day she got down out of the hammock and came to where I was sitting, and she said, God just told me to tell you that he wants you to work as a son and not as a slave. And that really hit me. And I was like, what does that mean? And so I was exploring all of that. What does it mean to work as a son? What does it mean to not have an orphan spirit? And how do I pursue my mission in life without going after all of the stuff I've been told is important. Be a son, still provide for my family. How does all of that work? Well, I settled on starting my own business, taking the therapy hobby that I was doing of woodworking and developing it into what I thought would make money. After a lot of prayer on a date, and I had done all the math, and I knew what was going on with my retirement, and we burned the ships. We really did. We took my 401k, which I had been doing all of the matching money I could possibly do to build it as fast as I could. Like I said, I had the retirement with some penalties, and we had some savings, and it was enough that I could survive the 3 to 5 years that most people tell you you have to have in order to survive and get your business going. And then, of course, it would be gone. So it was a very profound decision, difficult decision to make. But I was like, hey, this is better than going back into that mess. And so we did it. We burned the ships. I retired. And we started turning my woodworking hobby into a business. And then, of course, a YouTube channel, which is where you found me. So I allowed myself to start really slow. I slept in until my eyes were ready to come open for months. And then I would go do my woodworking stuff. And I started getting orders, and I had about a dozen people who commissioned me for chainsaw art, and I was making some money. Most of it went back into tools and supplies, but it was good. The business was growing. Things were moving along pretty good, and I started this YouTube channel, and I thought, this might be a fun way to share my journey about how I make art. I wasn't really ready to tell my hard story like I'm telling you now. I've always loved to teach. And so I thought, well, I'll just show how I did it. I started out teaching how you do it, and then I realized that, no, this is really just my version of how it's done. And so I taught how it was done, and lo and behold, a bunch of you were interested, and I now have over 400 subscribers that are interested in this journey. And I hope you find this interesting as well, answering your question about how I got into chainsaw art. And I'm thriving. We're thriving. My wife Laurel and I, we are a second chance couple. We put our second marriage first. We put our relationship to God before that as an extreme priority. And we live our life from a place of peace into income. And then we use whatever that is to live at the lifestyle it produces. Very backwards from how I had always done it, and how it seems like most people I know do it. They say, I got to have these certain things, and therefore I need this amount of money, and so I'll make some sacrifices and do what I got to do to get this money to live the way I have stuff I got to have. Well, we said, enough with that. No. We are going to live at peace. We're going to live according to our design, and we are going to make whatever we make, and then we will take that, build assets, live on whatever money we have. And we're going to be happy, and we're thriving in this new philosophy. It's a beautiful thing. Are we making a lot of money yet? Nope. Is my YouTube channel monetized yet? Nope, not yet. But it's reversing things like hurry. Hurry, I've defined it for myself, is as an emotion. It's an internal, burning, destructive thing. But I can be quick, which is a speed. So it's learning to redefine those things. It's so going from this internal agitated state to just acknowledging that I meet a deadline on occasion for short bursts. I can be fast, but I don't have to destroy my inner peace in order to be fast. I don't have this anxiety. I don't have resentment. I don't have bitterness about where I'm at. I don't feel like I'm in a cage. I'm no longer trapped. And man, it's a beautiful thing to be free. So I want to encourage you to do the math on where you are. I'm not a financial planner. Take everything into your own control. Don't let your employer decide how long you stay. Don't be caught off guard because you weren't ready. One thing that made sense to me is like, stick your finger into a glass of water and pull it out and see how big a hole you actually leave. Well, that's kind of how valuable you are to your company. It's what you do that they pay you for. And then find somebody else to do it if you leave. Or if you break for whatever reason, like I did, then just find somebody else. It doesn't necessarily make them bad or inhuman or ugly or anything else. It's just the reality of it. They're running a business. They need a certain thing done. It's worth a certain dollar, and they need somebody to do it. And if you can't do it anymore, then you're out of here. Or if they don't need it done anymore, you're out of here. And that's just what happens. So I encourage you to know all of your numbers. Don't just blindly follow somebody's advice about how to create your retirement, how to build assets, how to live within what you're making. Know it yourself. Figure it out. Project your journey and know what your dollars are going to look like in the future so that you can make decisions and take control of your situation and get out of a bad place if you're in one, or know how long you're going to have to stick it out if it's mediocre, or how long you'll get to be happy and thrive there. Just know what your numbers are and take complete control of your own situation. I also encourage you to take stock of who you are on the inside. Whatever things trigger you and cause you to feel out of control and make you do things that you wouldn't do if you'd really thought it through are things that you need to take time and work on. Figure that out. What's causing that? What lie am I believing? Replace that lie with the truth. What vows have I made that my internal self is trying to fulfill, even though they are in contrast and damaging to actual reality? And it could go on and on with this stuff. But there are a lot of things where we are incongruent. We cannot behave in a way that is inconsistent with how we believe about ourselves. And so you got to get that stuff fixed. So follow the numbers, work on your insides. Thirdly, I would highly recommend that you work on your relationships. Number one, your relationship with God. Number two, your relationship with your wife. And number three, your relationship with people who understand better how to fix the inside of you, how to pursue God in your faith, how to build a business. In other words, look to people who are where you want to be. Stop taking advice from people who aren't where you want to go, but get good, solid relationships built with people who can help you. So again, to recap on those, if I had to do it all over again, I'd start really, really early, knowing what my numbers were, working on my insides, and working on my relationships, because there's nothing makes you more stable than having good relationships, being healed on the inside, and knowing the real numbers about your life and what it takes to live. So where am I going from here? My wife and I are a creative couple-preneur. My wife actually made that up. She's quite funny. And we're going to continue on this journey together to learn how to be in business, to be entrepreneurs. We are not going back, either one of us, to a corporate structure, to working a job for someone else. Not that those are necessarily bad for you if that's where you are and that's what you want, but we are not going back. I am going to post a video a week, continue to show how I do my woodworking and lessons that I learn about life. I'm going to post one a week also about how I'm working to monetize my YouTube channel. I've discovered that I really like those videos, not only the ones about overcoming and victory and life lessons, but how people are monetizing their YouTube channel, how they're doing that, how they learn to make better videos, pick better topics, how they learn about YouTube business, and just watching their numbers grow. That's kind of cool to me. I'm going to share some of that information in a second video a week, because I'm really serious now about monetizing this channel by giving great value so that more people will want to watch, and that'll be part of our entrepreneurial journey moving forward. And we are going to really focus on second chances in life. We are a second chance marriage. We are a second chance in career. And I'm discovering that maybe the thing that we're actually good at is the tenacity to make the second thing really work and be really good. My wife and I have been married now over 10 years in our second marriage, and I understand that Businesses fail at a really, really high rate. Second marriages fail at a really, really high rate. And so we're going to focus on making those things work and sharing what we are learning about how we've made them work. I am 58 years old. I am living proof that you can remake your life. You can get married again. You can thrive in both of those things. And I invite you to continue to come along on the journey with me and learn with us. We are more like people who have found some things that work and that we can share, but we're also learners and strugglers together with you and are sharing what we learn as we go. So one of those things that I've learned is how to fix it when you're reacting out of proportion. And I'm going to put a link to a little video I made here that talks a little bit more about that if you're interested. Please like and subscribe and share this. It's the way that the algorithm pushes this out to more and more people who they think will find this information helpful. So it would help us. It'd be a great honor to us.